So I finally get to review the latest release from the house of Maison Margiela for you today. On a Date has launched. It's selling at slightly higher price than the other fragrances from this house, but I'm going to do a full review for you today with this fragrance. But I'm not going to stop there. I'm going to go a step further and do also a ranked list of the fragrances of this house, but I'm doing a top 7 Maison Margiela fragrances, and On a Date will be featured on this list as well. Plus, we'll let you know about a few possible discontinuations as well. So if you're curious to learn about On a Date from the house of Maison Margiela, then please stay tuned. Thanks so much for tuning in. This is Sebastian. Yeah, today we're talking about Maison Margiela's On a Date, a new release from Maison Margiela. It's finally a pretty solid release for me after a few disappointing releases, such as Autumn Vibes and the Rain one that came out before this. Really didn't care for Autumn Vibes, and I did not care for the Rain one. But I think we've got a pretty solid fragrance here, although it seems a bit on the classic side. It is after all a fruity Chypre or a fruity floral Chypre fragrance, so this might kind of turn off a few folks, but I feel like it's a pretty solid release. There are some negatives about it, and you'll find out all about this one today, as I said. Plus, I'm going to let you know the top 7 fragrances, and as I mentioned, there are a few possible discontinuations from this house as well. They've already discontinued 2 of my fragrances from this house, Lipstick On and Tea Escape. Now we have a few others that are possibly discontinued as well. Why wouldn't they discontinue to 2 really disappointing ones from them that came out before this, like the Autumn Vibes and the Rain one, because I really did not care for those 2 fragrances. But let's talk about On a Date. It just launched. It is selling at a slightly higher price than the rest of the collection. It's $160 for 100 ml. So I think they're going up there in prices now. I think these prices are going really high. This is, after all, a designer, and this is a signature line of fragrances. So $160 for an eau de toilette fragrance, I feel like is highly priced. So this is already kind of a negative for me for this particular fragrance, and there's a few other negatives as well. But we've got a 2023 launch. Perfumer is Carlos Benaim, a master perfumer who's been making perfumes for a long time, so it figures the fragrance itself smells great. It is a Chypre fragrance or a fruity floral fragrance, and as I said, 100 ml for 160 eau de toilette concentration. And the notes for On a Date are black currant, rose, pink pepper, patchouli, oakmoss, geranium, Davana, vetiver, bergamot, and musk. So I bought my bottle at Harrods in London, and they had a big beautiful display there. When you buy a bottle, you get this big beautiful rose with it as well. This is a rose fragrance. This would fit perfectly in my rose Chypre fragrances video, so sadly I didn't have it at the time when I shot that video before the trip. But it is definitely a rose Chypre, meaning Chypre fragrances have that bergamot note up top. They typically have labdanum, and then also have the moss or oak moss note as well. Here we don't have labdanum mentioned, but we have bergamot, we also have patchouli, and we also have the oak moss or moss note for this. So that basically kind of gives you that particular style, but it is a fruity style. And when we first spray this particular fragrance, it's all about black currant. It's really in your face, really fruity, and also really fizzy. And here, when you're wearing this fragrance, you're starting to visualize and smell the smell of wine. So it definitely has a very wine-like smell, which I quite like. I'm a big wine lover, big wine drinker, and I also like my champagnes and sparkling wines, and also really love my wonderful red wine. And for me, this smells very winey, so it kind of, and even though it's fizzy and sparkling, so it acts like a champagne, but also has the very smell of strong wine, like red wines and things like that. So it's got that going for it, which is kind of cool, but very fruity with the black currant, and then also very rosy with the rose. These are fairly prominent here and definitely stands out. So they've thrown in geranium here as well. The geranium kind of complements the rose, boosts up its rosiness, but also kind of gives you a bit of aromatic characteristic, kind of herbal and things like that. maybe a bit minty, but I feel like it helps and accentuates the rose here as well. Pink pepper also, I feel like the pink pepper also has some rosiness, so you do have a very rosy presence. I actually was wearing this to the gym once and my trainer said, man, you smell like roses. And I said, no, it's supposed to smell like, you know, sparkling wine and things like that. He said, yeah, it does, but it's very, very rosy, and I believe him. It's definitely got lots of roses, because he didn't smell the black currants or the fruitiness. He definitely picked up roses, and this is definitely a very, very rosy fragrance. But eventually when it's settling down, you've got lots of patchouli, Oakmoss, Vetiver, so it does get woody here, and here you're really experiencing the Chypre-like qualities. And so it's definitely a Chypre fragrance. It's a fun fragrance. I feel like it's going to be perfect in the spring and summer, perfect for warm days, especially since it's an eau de toilette. And the disappointing thing about this particular fragrance is it's light. It's really, really light. For an eau de toilette at $160, price is going really, really high on this. So smells great. Disappointing performance, I think. Although I shouldn't say it doesn't linger on, it does have lingering qualities. I feel like the Oakmoss, Patchouli, Vetiver, and the base really helps it carry it along throughout the day, but it's really, really close to the skin, because I was testing it out at the gym, as I was saying, and my trainer was actually trying to really smell me to see if he can smell the fragrance, and then he mentioned he smelled roses, but typically when I wear fragrance, he can smell it and I don't have to ask him about it. So there is that negative thing going for this particular fragrance. So I don't know how well this will do. I feel like Carlos Benaim has done a great job. I wish he made it a little more intense so we can actually experience its beefiness, because here we don't have that. It kind of comes off weak and things like that because it's a bit subdued on me, and so that's a disappointing thing about it. So $160, and for a weak fragrance, that's probably going to turn off a lot of you folks. And also the fact that it's this kind of a classic style fragrance, a Chypre, maybe that might turn you off as well. But if you've sampled it, let me know what your thoughts are on this particular fragrance. I really like the smell, and I feel like in the heat this will shine, especially since it's kind of light. I would overspray this in the heat and maybe wear it to a winery, go up to Napa Valley and wear this going up there. I think that would be perfect for me, because it does get pretty hot up there, especially in the summertime. Spritz this stuff on and go do some wine tasting. I think it's going to be perfect. So I like the smell. I just wish it was more beefier and the price was kept around the $145 range with the rest of the fragrances. And that's another thing I don't understand. Why are they pricing this high when the others are lower? This is something I read. I don't know why they're doing that. Also, I should say, when I first started reviewing Maison Margiela, the prices for the fragrances were around $123. That's when I think the first bottle I bought, it was by the fireplace. The prices have gone way up, now into 140s, and then now we've got this at 160. So expensive. Anyway, let me know your thoughts on Maison Margiela's On a Date. Let's go ahead and get started with the ranked list. I should also say, before we get started, probably not going to find your favorite fragrance here, and probably the ranking is going to be probably all over the place, because yeah, some of the fragrances that I really enjoy are supposedly discontinued now even further, so that's a bit disappointing. But we're going to go ahead and get started at number 7 with Springtime in a Park. So this is a very spring-like fragrance. It's a fruity floral fragrance in the end with musk, and it's got notes of pear, lily of the valley, and musk, of course. And so this is got that kind of light fruitiness from the pear, overdose of green flower touches from the lily of the valley, and I feel like the lily of the valley here is pretty prominent along with the pear. And then of course you've got that beautiful sexy musk in here, clean, very, very spring-like. Just imagine spring flowers blooming and things like that. And I feel like this is very fresh, and it does lean on the feminine side, but if you're into the idea of lily of the valley with pear and musk, definitely check out Springtime in a Park, which is at number 7. And then at number 6, we are going with the fragrance Matcha Meditation, this one right here. So this came out a few years ago. Has it been a few years? I think it came out in 2021, yes. So this is, I think it's created by Maurice Roussel. I feel like he did a pretty good job with this one. Sadly, I think it replaced Teascape, one of the better fragrances from this house that got discontinued. And here we've got kind of a creamy matcha tea fragrance wearing experience rather than with the Tea Escape. It was more aromatic and more like actual tea. But this is featuring jasmine, matcha, green tea, orange blossom, white chocolate, and oak moss. For me, it does have a bit of gourmand touches because of that white chocolate creaminess here. And then the matcha has a very green quality to the fragrance. And of course, it's got this cozy vibe. I feel like the green tea and the white chocolate do have a very calming coziness. So, and then the flower and the floral touches of the jasmine adds that kind of a floral seed to the fragrance. So matcha meditation at number 6. And then at number 5, it is Under the Lemon Trees. And this is the citrus fragrance from this house. A pretty solid citrus fragrance. And it is called Under the Lemon Trees, but they're actually using lime here. No lemons for the note. And you know, it does have a lemony vibe for sure. Lime, lemon, lemon, lime, 7-Up maybe. So it features notes of lime, green tea, Petitgrain, cardamom, mate, coriander, musk, and cedar. I think, once again, this is a very fresh fragrance. It's eau de toilette. All these fragrances are eau de toilettes. The house discontinued their eau de parfum fragrances, so they left only the eau de toilettes. And I feel like this is a perfect fragrance to wear in the summertime in the heat once again. And of course, it's very, very citrusy. And also it has some calming touches. The green tea adds that kind of calming, soothing kind of a layer. But it's got some bitter greens, it's got some spices, and lots of lime here to act like lemons. So it's Under the Lemon Trees from Maison Margiela at number 5. And then I'm putting On a Date at number 4. And I've already mentioned it for you guys. It's a floral, fruity Chypre fragrance. Got classic touches and rosiness, and of course mossy earthiness and patchouli kind of woody touches as well. So I like the fragrance. I just wish it was beefier, and I wish the price was lower, not the higher price. I just don't get that whole price hike on this particular fragrance. I just don't get it. But you know, I really do like the fizziness and the whole touch of wine smell in here. I like that. I really like the smell of wine. Really love drinking it, and I like smelling it here in On a Date. So On a Date at number 4. So moving on to number 3, it's Coffee Break. This one right here. Originally, one of the databases had mentioned that this is a fragrance created by Jacques Cavalier. Later I found out it was created by Nathalie Lorson. So I'm not 100% sure who created this one, but I think it's a pretty solid fragrance, but not my favorite from the house, obviously. Coffee Break is a aromatic herbal take on a coffee milk lactonic fragrance, and it features lavender, lots of it, and it's contrasted with the coffee and the milk. I like the idea of coffee and milk together, and the lavender sort of works. It doesn't like 100% work, but I get it. It kind of has a calming quality. I guess lavender is edible, so it makes sense to add it here. It's just a unique take on something that's lactonic with coffee. It's got the aromatic touches, of course, herbal touches, and a bit floral touch from the lavender that's contrasted with the coffee and milk. So anyway, Coffee Break at number 3. How many of you likes that one? Let me know. Number 2, it's Beach Walk. Beach Walk is a fun fragrance, and I have grown to really enjoy Beach Walk and beachy fragrances. It's one of the fragrances that kind of helped me along to kind of come along to enjoy the style of beachy fragrances. And I like this one. It's got tropical touches and of course very beachy. Ylang-Ylang, coconut, musk, heliotrope, lemons, pink pepper, bergamot, benzoin, and cedar. A lot of the fragrances in the older days with this brand seemed a little more complex than now, but this one has a really beautiful musky quality. It's supposed to smell like skin that's been applied with suntan lotion, dipped into the water, into the sea, where you've got the salty skin kind of a thing. And so it's a kind of a musky, beachy fragrance. Really fun fragrance. I really enjoy it. Beach Walk at number 2. And you've probably guessed my number 1. It's By the Fireplace. By the Fireplace is the best fragrance from this house. I smell so many people wear it. It is probably one of the fragrances that you might smell a lot everywhere because it is probably the most popular fragrance from this house. It's just a really yummy fragrance. It's a gourmand, a bit smoky, but very, very, ambery and vanillic. So vanilla, chestnuts, gaiac wood, Peru balsam, cloves, and pink pepper. Really a job well done for this house, I think. I just wish they had EDPs of their fragrances, but the fact that these are so expensive, if they did make an EDP of their fragrances, how much would they charge? Like 200, 220? Maybe they might be overpriced, but this is definitely solid. By the Fireplace is number 1 from the house of Maison Margiela, and that is what I'm talking about for you today. I've got some bonuses and some discontinued fragrances that I'm going to talk to you about after the outro, but let me know your thoughts on a Date. Of course, what your thoughts are on it. If you haven't sampled it yet after watching this video, are you curious to sample it? And let me know what you think about the rank list here. I know I'm missing some fragrances, and there's the discontinued stuff, which I'll mention after the outro, but let me know what your thoughts are on these fragrances and if you're a fan of this house. Anyway guys, thanks so much for watching today's video. If you have any questions or comments, please list below. Please like this video, please share it, follow me on Instagram and Facebook, and I'll be back with more videos very soon. Have a good one. Goodbye. So I left off several fragrances that I'm just going to talk to you about here as bonus fragrances. They just didn't make the list of top 7. I didn't want to make it a really long list, and I went with top 7. But there's Sailing Day, which is very marine and a kind of ozonic and fresh, salty fragrance. And then there's Music Festival, which is the cannabis patchouli combo. There's Bubble Bath, which is the soapy fragrance. So I left those off. They would have probably ended up at 8, 9, and 10. Maybe I'll do a second video later, we'll see. But the disappointing thing is I read that and I heard from my Nordstrom here that Whispers in the Library is discontinued, which was one of my favorite fragrances from this house. If it was here, it would have pushed everything back and ended up at being number 2, Whispers in the Library. It's the vanilla from this house. Disappointing. It's disappointing. Like Lipstick On, which was one of my all-time favorites, it would have been number 2 if it was still here too. So Whispers in the Library would have been at number 3 if Lipstick On was still here. And then Tea Escape would have been at number 4. But now we've got Whispers in the Library discontinued. So if you have a backup bottle, get it. I just bought a backup bottle of it and it's gonna stay sealed forever. But the other one that I feel like is discontinued as well, and I'm going to ask Nordstrom very soon, At the Barber's. You know, it wasn't one of my all-time favorite fragrances from this house. It was very light for a fougere fragrance. All these fragrances are pretty light, although I feel like By the Fireplace is got pretty good longevity. But At the Barber's I feel like is discontinued now as well. So anyway, I left off Jazz Club. Are you disappointed? I did leave off Jazz Club. There's a lot of fans of it. It's not one of my favorite fragrances, sadly. I like it, I don't love it. But let me know your thoughts on these discontinuations and the additional fragrances that I mentioned that did not make the cut. Anyway guys, thanks so much for watching. Have a good one. Bye-bye.